Guys, thanks so much for your time. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
So I want to jump into this. How did because individually you guys are both very successful and very well respected musicians. How did the Pleasures itself come about?
That's probably my fault. I reached out to Lachlan at a very transitional time in my life. I wanted to try some new stuff. I'd always, Lachlan and I have been friends for years. We met in America on a tour. We were both over there for different reasons, and we met up through Bill Chambers and hung out for the first time and just stayed friends for years. And sort of, I always loved what Lachlan did. It was so different to what I was doing, obviously musically. But I always, at my heart, I've always been a singer-songwriter, and I've always loved great songwriters. And we don't have a ton, here in Australia. I just always thought Lachlan stood out, as a really great songwriter and an
Wow.
artist. He never tried to be like anyone else. He always did his own thing. He always had his own sound, and I really respected that. You see so many artists come along and try and sound like other people or try and imitate another artist, whereas Lachlan never, I felt like from day one, never did that. And I was fortunate enough to sing on one of his first records and not meet him. So
Yeah,
I've
right.
heard his stuff before. I was asked to do some harmonies on one of his records he made with Rob McCormack, and I loved him from then. So we kind of always had that friendship, and when it came to this sort of changes in my life, I wanted to try some new things, and I reached out to Lachlan. I just sent him a message and said, would you want to do something together? And I think when I said that, I initially meant like, I don't know, a duet or write a song together, or like, I don't even really know what I meant. I just wanted to do something musically with him and see what happened, really. And it kind of just went from there. It kind of became its own thing very quickly, but started as an innocent, fan, I guess, reaching out to see
Yeah.
if he would want to collaborate. So yeah.
What a compliment, Lachlan.
I was thinking when Catherine did reach out, I kind of jumped on the idea as soon as I could, because kind of doing, you very kindly described us both as very successful, etc. But the other side of what Catherine was saying is, I've often felt like I'm kind of like scrambling around in the bushes outside of the music people are actually wanting to listen to. So to have someone
Yeah, right.
that people that I obviously had a lot of respect for Catherine as an artist, and she also has achieved so much, and I've always felt like I've enjoyed making music always, but always felt like a little bit of an outsider. So it was a nice compliment in that way too.
Yeah. Do you think, because sometimes collabs themselves aren't always guaranteed to be successful. The Pleasures have like, you guys are busy. You guys are turning heads everywhere. Do you think that part of that success is because of the success you've had as individuals? You've been in the scene, you know the game, people know you. So when you approach them as the Pleasures, there's already like an air of success behind it.
I think it's certainly particularly early on, it was helpful. We got booked on some festivals that both of us had played individually, and that certainly helps, because as you know yourself, one of the hardest things is getting booked on these big shows and good shows, and festivals are a really great way to reach an audience quickly, and we got to do some of those pretty early in our career as a band. When you're 20 years old and you start a band, all your mates come to the first few shows, and then they kind of drop off.
Yeah.
Small bands that it whittles down to the people that love the music and not just the loyal mates. When you've been doing it as long as we have, you don't have that luxury in a way. So for any artists that have been playing for a long time to start something new, it's quite hard. But we were very lucky in that way that we had people showing up to our shows from the first one. And I guess the thing is that we just had to make sure that it was something good and new, and that it lived up to any expectations people had. So I think, and that was hard, because Catherine and I in this band are both doing things that we don't normally do in our own music. So the learning curve was pretty high for both of us. We had to we had to do a fair bit of work early on to kind of get good enough to justify putting on a gig.
You mentioned this, like, so how do you guys balance Pleasure's project versus individual music as well? This one fascinates me with how successful and how much demand there must be for you guys as individuals, but then obviously the success of the Pleasure's taking off. How do you guys balance that?
It's been tricky for sure. I think both of us decided fairly quickly when the Pleasures record came out that we were into it and that we were both really loving the ride of it. I think there's a lot that goes into that. You know, we've both been doing our individual stuff for a long time. And I think you get to a point where, you know, I've been playing songs that I wrote when I was 14, you know, for a long time.
Yeah, wow.
And it kind of gets to that point where you're like, oh man, it's so fun to play completely new songs that you're scared to death getting on stage and doing, and completely out of your comfort zone. It's like starting over again. It's like this really thrilling feeling that you don't get ever as a solo musician that's been doing it for 20 years. You know, you kind of you lose that thrill of the you know, I mean, you do when you have a new record, I guess, but it's not the same. We literally had every song was brand new. So it's like no one knew a song, and including us. So it was a balancing act for sure. But I think very quickly it became, look, if we don't focus on this and give it its best shot, there was really no point in doing it. So we both kind of gave it everything for a year or so and just, you know, went with it. And it because of that, I feel like it grew because we both gave it attention. And, you know, we're both still managing somehow to make new music individually. We've both tried anyway. Neither of us have anything out. Oh, no, you have something out. I am desperately trying to get a new Catherine Britt record out, but it's tricky even without a side project. Like I find that hard to juggle anyway. So, but like I'm not worried about it because my goal is always to make music and to be creative. That's my job. So no one's waiting around, you know, desperately for stuff to come out at a certain time. They just want you to keep releasing music, whether it's the Pleasures, whether it's Catherine Britt, whatever. It's still, you know, coming from us individually in a way. So I think it's just about always being creative and making music, and whether that's, you know, the Pleasures, Catherine Britt, Lachlan Bryan and the Wilds, I think people are, if they're fans, they're just happy to hear it. So we just somehow try and do it all at once. But it is tricky. It is tricky. But we're both dedicated to this project and we're both giving it, you know, our full attention. And I think it will only succeed if you do that.
I think you know, obviously I'm in two bands. My career has always been very band oriented, and I've tried to start other bands as well. And I think that the way that you juggle these things is things always take gather a lot more momentum when you have people working together on something, you know, and that's something that is much easier, I think, as a band than as a solo artist. You know, my other band, The Wilds, everyone's kind of off doing their live thing, their life stuff, and we've become more of a studio band than a live band. But when you have a group of people, now Catherine and I sometimes will do a Pleasure show, just the two of us, but generally the Pleasures is a band with Damien and Brad. And when you have 4 people or 3 people most of the time, Damien doesn't tour with us, but when you've got people like focused on the same thing, and you just kind of get that gang mentality of being a band. And that's it's kind of a bit of an all for one for all thing. And it doesn't always work, you know, like the music has to work and the personalities have to work together, and you really have no idea when you go into it whether that's going to happen. And we didn't have any of that either. And but you know, Catherine and Brad we're all like family to each other. Catherine and Brad are literally family to each other. But we're I think that kind of, in terms of trying to balance things, which was your original question, you kind of, your attention gets drawn to what you can kind of work together on, and the Pleasure's been great for that. You know, like a lot of bands out there are you know, there might be one full-time musician and a few people kind of hanging out and tagging along, and like we all have no other choice, you know, than to make music, and that's and we still have responsibilities and things. And I think once you're in the position, you're like, well, there's nothing else we can do but just go hard at this. And the great thing is we love it. The other thing is in the kind of country music world, there's a lot of collaborations that happen, but they very transparently, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but it always seems very transparent that they're doing it to just try and find another angle, or to try and, find a way to get booked on something, or another reason people to get interested. I think what's worked about this is it was totally a fluke that it came together. Catherine reached out to me, and then we wrote a song. We were like, oh, this is good. Let's do a bit more. It came together very organically. And I honestly don't think we've thought much about, oh, this is a good strategy for us both. It's just been like, hey, we're a band making music, and I think when you're honest about that, and when it's pretty clearly not a deliberate strategy thing, it's a lot more interesting to people to listen to.
But surely there was a point where, and maybe it was like super early on, maybe not, that you went, hey, there's something a little bit special here with the Pleasures. So it may have been like an organic kind of concept and meat, but the run that you guys have had, surely there was a point that you're like we're on to something pretty special here.
I reckon I felt that on the first time we wrote and started recording. I mean, when I went down to Melbourne, neither of us had any expectations. Like Lachlan said, it was, let's write a song and see what happens. And it kind of went from that to we were writing 6 songs and recording them the next day. Like and all of a sudden had an EP, and it was like, oh shit, how'd that happen, But I think
that's unreal.
In that sort of whirlwind of creativity and just craziness that was, I knew pretty quickly. I think it was around the time we wrote Sad Song, which is probably night 2. I thought there's something really special here. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know what it's going to be, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like something is really special about this, and I need to give it, let it go, let it see what happens, and I think from there it just kind of organically grew, and I think it became what it became very naturally, which I think is why it's been the way it has been. It's just worked because we haven't tried to push it in a direction or make a sound or be a type of band or whatever. We really did not think anything through. Maybe it would have been more successful if we did, but we didn't. We just kind of made music to make music that felt right. And I was going through a divorce and I wanted a way to get it out, and I felt really in a bad place, and there's nothing that makes you feel better than writing a song about it. So,
agreed.
I was going through a lot of the time, and it just really saved me in a lot of ways. This project really saved me. And I think, you can hear that in the music. It's a real heartbreak record. It's a real, transitional record. It's really just a moment in time that we captured, and I knew it was special at the time, and it has been special ever since. So we're very lucky.
And Lachlan, you must have seen this. So many bands get to a point where they can't manage a conflict. How do you guys, because I would say it's impossible to be conflict free, right? Like, how do you guys, between you, big, small, or ugly, how do you guys manage conflict between yourselves?
In the past, I've always managed conflict by being very much my way or the highway, I've been the very strong leader of the other bands that I've been in, and I think that one of the things that is different about this is, and even with songwriting and stuff, I actually find it quite hard to write songs with other people as a rule, and this kind of answers your last question from my perspective as well. When I realized that I trusted Catherine so much with a song, like with an idea. Maybe it was an idea that I'd come up with a title or something. And sometimes I get very attached to these things, and the idea of writing with somebody else, I would feel like there's too much of a chance that they'll screw it up. But I realized pretty quickly that Catherine was going to make it better, and I think that has helped me when we disagree on stuff, because I'm pretty good at feeling like I know best. But having the experience of writing with Catherine and going, oh, well, actually, often Catherine knows best with this has made it easier for me I hope to be less of a control freak. I'm looking at Catherine now to see if it's the case, but I think a lot of conflict in my life is about me being a control freak, and I feel like whilst I'm sure I still have parts of that, I trust Catherine and Brad a lot, and um, and Catherine is very easygoing in a conflict. Like the thing is that we both, and I don't think Catherine will mind if I say even more so her, have you know, reputations for being pretty forthright. But actually working together, we seem to like get over stuff very quickly.
Yeah, I don't find you like the least conflict person that I've ever worked with. And I think that's a relief for me, because the music industry is surrounded by people wanting to start something, you know, or people wanting to be angry about something. You know, it's always a drama. It's always, and growing up with brothers, I avoided drama like the plague, you know, growing up. I always had, you know, the least drama friends, and I just hated it. And I, you know, found it hard to hang out with girls for that reason growing up, you know, as a teenager. But I think for me, I'm drawn to Lachlan because he's none of that, you know, he doesn't engage in rumors. He doesn't engage in, you know, there'll be something going around that's, you know, really awful or whatever. And, you know, I'll say, oh, have you heard this? And Lachlan goes, no, I don't really care. You know, and you'd be like, okay, we're not going to talk about that. But it's great, you know, like it's taught me to not that I engage in it, but it's taught me that, you know, he's just not interested in the low, you know, the gutter stuff of life, you know. And I think that's great, because I'm not either. And I think it you know, it's really good to focus on the positive. I've always been the conflict resolution in the van on tour, whenever it's been Catherine Britt or whatever, you know, whatever project I've done, I've always been the one in the middle trying to make everyone get along and be happy. And I think that works in our group for some reason. Lachlan's the, you know, one that drives everything. He works the hardest by far in our band. On the project stuff, he just is always working away. And, you know, we've all kind of got our roles, I guess. You know, we all do our individual things. We're clear on that. And we all, I think the biggest thing Lachlan said for me was respect. If you don't respect each other, it's very quickly falls apart. And I think, you know, even there's an inkling that you don't trust them or don't respect them for some reason, you know, that stuff starts coming in, and the underlying, you know, things start happening. But we're just all so respectful of each other that none of that's really happened. We haven't had a need to really address anything major yet.
Unreal.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
And I love what you said, Lachlan, about, you know, if you trust someone, you can kind of let something go and be like, all right, like let's see how that pans out. Now you guys are coming to WA, my beloved state. Nanup, I think you guys are playing at Honky Tonks too. Did I see that? Yeah, and you're like heading over to Europe and stuff as well. Did I see that?
That's become a part of our lives, actually, is kind of going to Europe, and the States to an extent as well. So we can't quite announce the dates yet, but we're pretty soon after heading over to Europe, which will be great, you know. And I guess that's been another good thing, is like we like traveling together. So it's
for artists that haven't traveled to Europe, you know, where does one start when they're like, hey, I want to get out of Australia? Like, what's the first step that you guys, you know, take when you do that?
I've been doing it with my band for a long time. I hate being that person that says, you know, luck, but so much of this is kind of about someone seeing you do something somewhere and then saying, oh, hey, you should talk to this person about doing something somewhere else, you know. And for me, like I went first to Europe because at the time I had a booking agent in the US, and she booked, she sort of got me and my band in a package deal with some other bands to play at a festival in England, and that's kind of how it started. I guess it started by getting to the US, and I think that, like a lot of at the time young Australian acts, me and my band were just like, yeah, you know, we want to go to America. Like, that's where all the music we love comes from. So I've just thought of an answer in the middle of this. Maybe the secret is to, if you want to go somewhere and become part and end up doing this kind of stuff, just sort of follow the music. Maybe go. I think that's kind of what Catherine did long before I did. You know, went to America. You kind of the reason to go to America should not be to become a star. The reason should be because you want to be around that great music, and you want to see where it came from. You know, you want to you want to experience the things that the people that wrote that music experienced, and you want to play with the musicians that they played with. You know, it's a bit like I remember reading an article about the police picking up Bob Dylan in like just about 10 years ago in someone's front yard in New Jersey, and it was Bob Dylan was there kind of scoping out the house that Bruce Springsteen grew up in, because his answer was that he wanted to kind of see what it was that made Bruce Springsteen. So if Bob Dylan in his 70s can still be searching out answers and reasons to why music exists, then there's no reason that all of us can't. And I think it's a good it's a very vague answer, but I think
I love it.
Thing to keep in mind with this is do it because you love the music, not because you want to have any sort of success strategy or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that too. I reckon the biggest thing, I think, and Lachlan kind of said it in a roundabout way, is when opportunities present themselves, you are ready to embrace them, and you do. I mean, no one's going to sign a record deal from their bedroom. You know, you've got to go out there and get it. You've got to chase down these things. So when Lachlan does that first gig and they say, oh, you should contact blah, 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 Lachlan does contact blah, 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 and does follow that up, you know. And I think when opportunities present themselves, you need to be ready. When stars align, you need to be ready to embrace those alignments and take them and, you know, make the most of them. And I think that's the biggest thing that people often don't succeed, is because they don't take that, they kind of get lazy, you know, or they expect too much. It's really hard work. It's not easy being successful. It's hard work, and it's drive, and it's constant, you know, drive and hard work. It doesn't like sort of ease up. And the moment you do ease up is when the opportunities start to dwindle. So I think it's really about you as an individual, as an artist, and how bad you want it, you know, and how much you want to be, you know, do music for a living. And I think, you know, we're all so lucky to call this a job that we desperately don't want to let it go and have to get a real job.
No, but, totally. And so what's next for you guys? What's around the corner? What does 2025 and beyond hold for the Pleasures?
New music, definitely. We're about to go in and record a new album. I mean, we've done some, obviously. We've released a few new tracks over the summer. But we will finish it and have a new album out this year. Don't know when, but at some point. We've got lots of touring. The next few months are really busy. And then, as you mentioned, we're going overseas quite a bit as well. None of that's been announced yet, but it's all in the works, and it's going to be pretty full on like last year. But yeah, it's going to be another busy year this year, and I'm really excited about new music, because new music always gets me excited. So, and I'm really excited about the songs we've written. There's like, I think, better than the first record. So yeah, I'm excited for that. But yeah.
Was there something musically that you guys had to work on and improve on when you became a duo? Like, did the fact that you worked together mean that your natural style, or how you had naturally built your talent or skill set, did something have to change in that when you started working together?
Yeah, everything, I think. Like, yeah, I mean, you go from being the lead singer to being our lead singer in the band. So that, you know, giving space, I'm a very loud, all-consuming singer. So it's all about, you know, me when it's on my gig. And my voice says that, you know, it's very present in your face. It's very out the front. With Lachlan, I've had to learn to sing with somebody and not take up the whole space. You know, that's a big thing, you know, as an artist.
Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the
having to learn to share that space. which I've loved, by the way. But that was a huge adjustment for me, learning to sing differently, I think, in a lot of ways. Also learning to play electric guitar. I'd never picked up one in my life.
Wow.
I now play electric guitar in the band full time. So, yeah, that was a huge learning curve for me. But I love it. Like, it's so good. Everything
great.
about the band, we're all doing stuff we're totally out of our comfort zone, I think, doing.
I
And
love that. That's so cool.
it adds to the excitement of it for sure.
And Lachlan, was there anything that you had to?
Really like singing with somebody else, like phrasing the same as somebody else, or finding
Yeah.
middle ground, because a lot of our songs we're singing together, sometimes for the whole song. So it's not just like singing a harmony on a chorus or something. It's getting your phrasing for the whole song. And we have a lot of words too, so it's
Yes.
you know, singing along with these long sentences. And I've never I mean, I've written a bit like that before, but you know, like I front the band, so I can phrase it however I want, however I'm feeling on the day. Whereas with the Pleasures, you know, we've got to make sure if we're going to move things around, we've got to be feeling the same thing at the same time. So, and you know, same as Catherine, like I've hidden a bit as a rhythm guitar player in all the bands I've been in. So, you know, stepping out and playing some lead lines and doing that while I'm singing and all that kind of stuff. Like, there's been some actual physical, technical things to learn to do differently. It's been things that I've really enjoyed, and you know, I think that we'll always bring in things to this band that require us to continue to be, you know, challenging ourselves, I guess, and
Right.
exciting, because you don't want to, you don't want to stop being challenged by music. Again, I feel like I mentioned before that I was a bit of a late starter, and I think that's been one of my greatest advantages, has been that I wasn't one of those guys that could do all of this when I was 14, you know, and I had friends that were those people, and they don't play anymore, you know, like it's
Yeah.
nice to still be learning.
Yeah. Amazing, guys. Huge congrats on your successes. A golden guitar nom, did I see that for the Pleasures?
Yeah.
It's huge. Like, yeah, massive congrats. I love watching you guys and seeing how fast this kind of project is just, and where it's just kind of taking shape and going. Really appreciate your time and your honesty and sharing what you've shared with us. I think this is just, there's so many golden nuggets of I don't know, experience that you guys have shared, and I really do appreciate that. I wish you the best. I hope I'll catch you when you're over here in WA in a month or two's time. But in the meantime, hope the rest of the recording, the rest of 25 goes well.
Thanks.
Thank you. Cheers.
You let that fire burn freely like sparks on